Most coaches think that if they just create a group, post some content, and host a few calls, that their community will just automatically grow. But the truth is, if your free community isn't growing or people are joining and ghosting you, it's probably because you're missing the two things that matter most: real messaging and real connection. In this video, we're going to be breaking down exactly why most communities stay dead and how you can turn yours into a client generating machine. A machine that people actually want to stay in and a community they want to be a part of. So let's dive in.
Let's go.
Yeah, so first we're going to talk about the number one reason why we feel like communities stay stuck. So when you joined, I feel like our community was pretty stagnant, right? Like we had the systems, we had the course and the calls and the schedule, but
Yeah.
it was really stagnant. So I'd love to hear your opinion on that. Why do you feel like some communities just stay stuck?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to it, but I would say the biggest thing is, if you're not known or, if you don't have a big YouTube following or Instagram following or even on a big following on school, obviously it's going to be way easier if you're known because those people already know, like, and trust you. So I think that's like the biggest thing is getting known, whether it's on the school platform, Instagram, and obviously how do you get known, right? That's a whole nother podcast. But it's really just showing up consistently. And that, I would say that's like a big thing that's missed is people showing up, being consistent, and just making genuine connections.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so they need to make genuine connections. So what about people's input versus the output that they see in their community? Like, what do you see if a community owner feels like their group is like a ghost town? Why is that?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, when they're going to build this community, they have all these amazing visions for it. But then once they actually like launch the community, the community itself isn't necessarily going to be thriving, right? I feel like they need to do that back end stuff as far as like building the relationships, getting known, building those genuine connections, and then having those people come in as if you were just having like a house party, and you're having these people from outside coming into your house, and you're pretty much the one obviously hosting the party because it's at your house. And I feel like a lot of times, there's almost like that awkwardness, especially when you only have 5, 10, 15, 20 members. And the biggest key role of a community owner is to be a facilitator and housing that party, right? Getting those members to get to know each other, getting each other to have genuine connections. And I feel like that's how I look at a community is like you're hosting a house party and all those people in there most likely don't know each other, but you as the owner need to facilitate that.
Yeah, okay. So then why would someone stay, right? Like we have this house party. You're the person who's thrown the party. Why do people stay?
Well, from the house party perspective, myself, I would stay maybe because there's a food coming out, right? Like say there's a meal coming out, but it's not coming out till 6, but the party started at 2. I would wait. I would wait till 6.
Of course you would.
And I think obviously like from a community perspective and an online perspective, obviously that's not realistic. So you have to do it in some other way. When people come into your community, people want something from you. Maybe they just want to support you. That's one thing. But a whole nother thing is that they want something from you, some type of knowledge that you have. Maybe it's the money that you're making, so they want you to help them make that money, So I would say the biggest thing is give them what they want. And then once they're in, let's say, a paid program, you give them what they need to be successful. And I think people stay in because of connection and community. But in order for them to originally get in there, they need to come in because they purely just want something from you. An alternative motive in that way.
And that's where I feel like later on in this episode, I want to talk about, like how to make sure your messaging is on point. That way you're attracting the right people into you. But what I feel you and I have both brought to this community is like I brought this structure and this strategy and the systems, and then you brought the community, which was what was missing from day one. And so I feel like with one without the other, it just doesn't work. You have to have both of those sides for them to be able to come together and build this business machine that's actually able to take a member and turn them into a client where you can help them more than what they could have gotten just by resource hopping or program hopping.
Yeah, and I would say like there's people that are obviously outgoing. There's other people that are more introverted and rather not socialize and get into people's DMs. And I would say if it does feel forced, to be honest, because not every community owner is going to feel like, one to just want to host a party every day or whatever. I think it's important to find another, whether it's a co-host or, um, even pay somebody something where they're somebody that just genuinely loves people and connecting and having them come into your community and show up as that host.
Mm.
I feel like a lot of people that aren't genuinely like connectors and wanting to, people talk, which I love talking to people in person. It comes easier for me.
Yeah.
Where like for you, you're more like, you're more in the back end, less,
Introverted.
communicating. Yeah. So I think
Yeah.
that's why I filled that spot for you, and that's was your missing key point was a host, somebody that actually hosts this community.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Which has done a lot of things, right? Once your community is going, like you have those super engagers, you have more people who come into the community that are then wanting to ascend to paid offers because they see the foundation that you have built and you're further positioned as the authority.
Yeah.
So I just think like the whole system is compounding, which is why I love it from a systems perspective, as I just see like long term how all of this just continues to grow and to scale. So one thing I think we should talk about is launching without strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Like you see it all the time, right? I think you should speak a little bit to what you see when somebody signs up to school and they're just posting maybe for no reason,
Yeah.
or they launch a community and it's not like there's maybe they got a good vision there, but there's no strategy involved. What have you seen, and why do you think that's a mistake?
Yeah. I guess when you launch a community, going back to that, I feel like I was actually on a call earlier today and I spoke to this. But yeah, I would say like adding FOMO, and I see a lot of people add FOMO, but they don't deliver. And that's like, to me, if you're going to add the FOMO, you have to deliver. You have to keep up those promises that you made, because you can definitely lose that trust with your audience.
For sure.
So for me, I'm big on, let's say you want to launch in, right now it's May 6th, 2025. Say you want to launch June 1st, which happens to be my birthday, by the way.
Little plug.
If you have an audience, let's say on Instagram or on YouTube, I would just, tease to your audience like something is coming. I'm super excited to release this. You're being super vague, but you're also like showing there's excitement. There's something coming in the future. I'm going to tell you guys next week, let's just say, right? It's May 12th or May 13th. And then May 13th comes and you're like, all right, guys, I'm about to announce this news to you. June 1st, we're actually launching a community on school. And you're giving them a reason why they should be there, right? And making the difference between Instagram and school. Because if you're giving the same exact information, why don't I just follow you on Instagram? Why would I want to come to your school community?
Yeah.
So I think making that clear distinction of this is what you get on Instagram, this is what you get on school, is very important. And I feel like people launch thinking they're gonna, there's gonna be the floodgates are gonna be open, when in reality, that's not always the case. So I think the strategy behind that is important.
Yeah.
And knowing how to monetize is extremely important.
Yeah, well, I think what helped us, because I feel like what I didn't have for like 6 years of my coaching business, was seeing from the bird's eye view how everything fits together. And when you see that and when you trust what you're doing is what you're meant to be doing, it becomes easier to zoom out and see how it all pieces together and the strategy that you need to take content to enroll into your free community to paid member. Like when you see the whole funnel system as a whole and how it works to support your business growth, the strategy just makes sense. It just clicks. And you have to have all the moving pieces figured out.
Yeah.
But I think it's a mistake when someone just starts posting randomly. Right? I think there's a way to level up the strategy enough to where the work you're putting in is compounding for your future growth.
Yeah.
And I think so many don't think about that when they're first getting started.
Yeah. I think people have a lot of motivation, but the discipline isn't built there yet. So it's like they're coming from a place of motivation, which is more short term, where you kind of need to work your way into that discipline prior to like launching and having that strategy.
So I think the other mistake that we want to talk about is how someone will go and try to build a community or a membership and they're not known first. So for example, like they have no audience outside of their school, right? No following on social media, no YouTube following, no podcast growth. And so they're just trying to launch with no community in place. And so Steve, what he did really well when he joined the team is he started to get known. And this guy, I saw him skyrocket in just a matter of 2 weeks, went from completely unknown to then getting the attention of some of the biggest players in the game, especially in school specifically. And he captured their attention by just outlining a couple things. So, Steve, I think it's really important you should speak to that because that came so naturally to you, and why that's so important for somebody just getting started to make sure they build that audience first.
Yeah, no, and obviously our community was growing before I was on the team and even on school. So, say you have a community out there, you have a community of your own, and you're like, oh, well, I have to start a whole new community to make this work. That's not true because we already had a community, magnetic memberships prior to me coming in. So it does work technically if you already have one. But yeah, getting known in general, right? Because a lot of times you're just posting and your post gets lost, right? It's on page 60 and nobody's ever going to see it. And it's just like one of those things that you feel like, well, why do I need a post if no one's even going to like it or comment? Like, what's the point, right? And I would say when I first started, obviously my likes, my comments were very low, very little. But that consistency was what really got, I would say, the momentum that I needed. And just showing up is like the biggest thing you can do, right? Just show up for yourself, for your team, show up for the people that need you, the people that need to hear you, and just serve. I think that was the biggest thing for me is like, I'm not going to connect with the money I could make or anything else, but if I can serve one person through a post that I can make and maybe get that aha moment for them, then I did my job. I helped that person, they're on this journey and I'm that one person that they met, and that one little piece that they need to hear can keep them going, right? It's like that video game that we used to play. And I think that's how I connected with the post, because there is a lot of times, you'll make a post and you just feel like you wasted so much time. You thought it was going to deliver and you thought it was going to be the best post ever. But when reality hits, there's really nothing, especially if you don't have an audience. I would say the biggest thing to getting an audience is showing up consistently, but also sharing your message consistently. Not like completely changing your message, being like, oh, I help baseball players throw faster pitches or whatever. And then going to like, oh, I help you actually swim as well if you want to be faster at swimming. You really have to stay consistent with your message, and it's okay to shift here and there, but to shift to that dramatic level, I feel, you lose your audience. Your audience loses trust in you. I think that consistency at the end of the day is the most important part.
Yeah, yeah. And what I saw you did from a strategy perspective, what Steve did was found a community on school that had our ideal clients already hanging out, and he worked to rank on the leaderboards, which basically means you're cheerleading, engaging, asking questions, answering questions.
Yeah.
And so he ranked in the leaderboards so that when people would join that community, which at the time I think there was like 40 or 60,000 people inside of there. And so as soon as they would go into the school community, they saw Steve's face and they saw him everywhere helping and being of service. And so that naturally led to people clicking on his profile and joining our community because it was free. So they could come in, and then he's already positioned as the authority there. And so it just became this natural funnel, and he was just really showing up, coaching, be authentically him. And then the system would kick in, and so they would join our free community, and they started ascending through our process. But that was the top of the funnel and the way that we were getting traffic based on his authority.
Yeah, and there was probably well over almost 100,000, I think, close.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was way more than that, but I think that's the place too. Like if you join a community, there has to be that intent. Like maybe you want something, maybe you just genuinely want a connection with someone. But from our standpoint, we're like, well, where are our people at? I think that's really important too, is like not only how you show up, but where you show up.
Yes.
And that platform, school platform really gave me a stage to find my authenticity. And, I don't have a big Instagram following or a YouTube following, but what I did do was show up consistently every day, and it came from a place of service. And I would DM people and help them for free, and just purely didn't want anything from it, honestly, but just to genuinely help people. And I think that was really the biggest part of it, which is coming up from a place of service.
Yeah. And I mean, people will get on calls with Steve, they'll just have conversations with Steve, and then there's testimonials all over our free community based on the value that was given just from those calls, which I feel any other group would have been so sales focused that they wouldn't have felt that genuine addition of value to their life. And that's what I feel like makes a true community,
Yeah.
is the leader of the community having value and service on their mind, which is what you have had since day one.
Yeah, exactly. And I was going to say too, as a community owner, you have to be a great host, but you really, at the end of the day, have to be a great facilitator, right? Because at the end of the day, you're facilitating different conversations. You're guiding, maybe two people, one from Africa, one from Australia, and you're just getting them to somehow talk with one another. Sometimes it just happens naturally. But a great community owner is a great facilitator at the end of the day. And that's something that I love. I don't necessarily always want to be in the talk of the talk and be in the conversation, but I'm always kind of in the background, just maybe helping facilitate things.
Yeah, and I think that's a beautiful segue, because what if somebody is sitting here, they're watching us, they're listening to this, and they're like, well, I don't know if I see myself wanting to be this facilitator or this community leader, kind of like myself,
Yeah.
right? Because that's just not my strength. That's not where I come alive the most. And so, what I want to encourage you, first off, if you're watching this, I started the community, but I realized that wasn't my zone of genius, hence why Steve is now here, and he was able to take that under his wing and do it far better than I ever could. And then Steve, we're even bringing community managers in to start to replace him in some of that and position them as the authority in the community as well. So we're even trying to buy back some of his time, and this is done kind of over time and slowly. But I just want to let you know that if you're watching this, we're doing that.
Yeah. And like I said, not everyone is that. It's like a personality type, honestly. Like I'm the type of person that, if I see somebody on a hike, I'll talk to them for 30 minutes. I have no idea who they are. That's just my personality. I'm very friendly and very open. So for me, this comes very naturally. So if it doesn't come naturally to you, it's going to feel resistant. And that's when I feel like it's not authentic. So when that's the case, and that's going to be the case for a decent amount of people, I feel like it is important to have somebody that is that person to talk and wanting to be like that super connector, and having them come into your community, whether you pay them to do it or if you just genuinely just want them to be in your community and you give them maybe free coaching or whatever it is. I think it's important, because if it feels forced, you're building something that you probably don't want. So it's
Yeah.
really important.
Totally. But I saw from the beginning how important the community aspect was to keep people like showing up, to keep them engaged, and really just to be able to provide more value to them. So I saw the value of it as that's just on a natural thing. Like I'd rather be building a funnel or filming content like this. And so
Yeah.
like engaging behind the screen in a community just was never my strength, but it was cool because that's where he's been able to come in. So he mentioned one of the things that we've done to build that sense of community, I think you were kind of leaning into that, is challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been something that's been really helpful for us to boost engagement. I think anytime we're having this slump where we feel like our engagement's a little bit low, we'll talk about how do we do a week-long challenge or a 30-day challenge in our community. And maybe we
Yeah.
should talk about the one that just finished and the prize that we gave away for that, because I feel like that really catapulted us back into the top 1% of all school communities.
Yeah, and I think kind of if you step out for a second too, besides just challenges, I think if you kind of go, like we're in Sedona, Arizona, right? It's very spiritual here, all about energy and all that stuff. As a community owner, if you put the energy to giving out, in a challenge, let's say, great gifts, like gifts that they really want, whether it's a drone or cash to pay for their school membership, give them what they want, right? Obviously, like if you're in fitness, maybe you'd give them fitness equipment.
Yeah, like a yoga mat.
Yeah, you do that, right? Or you do maybe a one-on-one coaching. You could package it however you want. But I'm a big believer in I'll give you something, and then you'll give me something, and that's just the way. Like it's a win-win situation,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want our members to feel like we're just take, and I want to be more giving than they give back to me. So if they give me $1,000 a month, I want to give them $2,000 a month. Like
Yeah.
it's just like that's how I am. And I think that's how the world really works when it comes to that. So yeah, that's a big aspect of it. But yeah, the challenges specifically work really well. But I think a lot of people go wrong in the challenges because they kind of give away what they think people want, instead of actually like listening to their audience and be like, what is it that you would want? And if that's something that you would want, that's what I should incorporate as the gifts inside of the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And I think listening to your members is probably the best way to find out what it is that these people want, right? Like just purely just asking them in a poll,
Yeah.
things like that. But yeah, the challenges is definitely a way to get, engagement going. 30-day challenge, you start looking at habits. You look at maybe a 30-day challenge. People are in a habit of just engaging in your community or just being active. If you maintain the flame, I'll give you this. And at the end of the day, you're helping your community, but you're really helping them being consistent, which I mentioned a million of times on this podcast.
Well, that's where our members from the last challenge we did, I think we got 4 or 5 video testimonials from it. And by the way, we didn't ask for these. I already posted a video about how we did that. Yeah. But they're giving us testimonials not because they were engaging in our community, but because we helped them implement the things that we believe are to make them successful in their own communities. And so then, yes, of course, they could win a drone by being consistent, but it helped them implement what we teach.
And a lot of people, after an onboarding call, they'll be like, man, you helped me so much. What can I do for you?
Yeah.
And that right there makes me kind of sit. I'm just like, man, that's cool you said that. And it's funny because I don't do the onboarding call because I want something from them. Right. I purely just want to give. But energetically speaking, they naturally, I feel like I need to give you something. What is it that I can do to help you, Mm-hmm. And that's a question that I don't get all the time, but when I do, I'm definitely like, man, thank you. I appreciate that.
And you got to think of what that does, though. In the mindset of your other community members, there's more know, like, and trust for the community leaders. And then a lot of times on these calls, they'll even put, look, if you haven't booked in this call with Steve, what are you waiting for? Here's the link where I booked mine. And that's without us asking, but they're naturally, think of how compounding that is after days, weeks, months, years of all of those case studies stacking up. People are going to feel silly for not booking in on a call like that when there's so much positive feedback from it. So not only does it fill your cup because you're able to coach and provide value, but it also helps your system and helps your funnel pump because there's more know, like, and trust.
Definitely. And I think it's so much easier when you're not inside of their business, where you feel like, you're in the mundane, where it's easier for me to see very clearly what it is that's, stopping them. Mm-hmm. And I think having that clarity is when I take those calls, having that clarity that I provide for them is probably the most powerful thing you can give somebody, right? Having clarity. Because when they have clarity, they take action. And that's what you need.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the 3 phases that we've seen with us and then our clients as well. The 3 phases of community growth. So number 1 kind of feels like you're yelling into this abandoned building, trying to get known. I've noticed at that point it feels like you're posting into the void. There might be little to no engagement. So I'm curious because that's kind of when you joined, that's really what was going on. It kind of felt like it was a party of one. Yeah. I was posting and I had my raving fans on there, you could say, but it was kind of a little stagnant feeling. So what have you seen with our clients and how do you overcome that stage to get to the next?
Yeah, I think it's definitely, there comes this motivation where, you start your community, you're like, oh, this is just, everyone's going to come in, my business is going to be thriving and I'm just going to start making money right away. But the truth is, it's not always the case, especially if you don't maybe have the right strategy or have a coach that can guide you. Because a lot of times you're just, you're practicing it and you're testing it, and a lot of it's all new. But the biggest thing is, I went back actually when I first joined school, and then I joined Magnetic Memberships. I looked, and it was just such a different. I would still post the similar content, but my audience was way different, right? I had maybe 200 followers on school at the time, so that means there was 200 notifications going out to everyone that was in the community. Where now I'm close to 2,000 followers, so now there's, that's the power of the consistency, though. That's kind of what I always preach. But that's the thing is you're talking into the void, and that's how I felt. I think everyone feels that, especially when you don't have an audience, you're not known, and that's exactly a great way to put it. Is you're literally talking to yourself until one day you're not, and you're like, oh my gosh, these people, because a lot of people will read your post even though they might not like it or comment. But you have to think of all the people that actually see it. That's the one thing that school doesn't have is the amount of viewers that see your post.
That'd be cool.
But just think of I saw 100 people saw my post and maybe only 2 people liked it, and I'm like, wow, why is that? But if you were able to reach out to those other 98 people that didn't like it, maybe those connections obviously aren't built. Maybe they wanted to say something, but there was no one else that commented, right? So you have to kind of think of the logistics in that way. But I was just going to say the first month, let's just say in August, I was kind of talking to myself.
Yeah.
In the second month, I was gonna say like I saw a big black and white difference, and it was just literally just from the consistency. It wasn't anything specific I did to change that. It was just maybe I was going to other communities, getting known. Those people were coming into our community, and they just genuinely wanted to connect.
Yeah.
And I feel like the power of staying consistent is probably the most powerful thing you could do in entrepreneurship. But knowing when to pivot, of course, but being consistent in a specific area is extremely important.
Yeah, well, it also goes back to the compounding effect,
Yeah.
where all the work you did from month 1 was now compounding into month 2. So something that school has is if you're following someone like myself or Steve, anytime he makes a post, you're going to be notified on your school account.
Yeah.
So at least at this time of this recording. And so what happened was, month 1 maybe he had 50 followers. Month 2 maybe there was 200. Month 3 maybe there was 300. And so now more and more people are getting notified every time he would make a post. And so now when he goes to make one, his like raving fans that I would say that you've created through this engagement process are now notified right away, and you'll see within seconds of the post coming out there's already someone commenting or
Yeah.
someone typing on it. And so I think to summarize, to shift from phase 1, which feels like you're yelling into a bin and building, to then stage 2, which is signs of life, it takes consistency.
Yeah. And it's like your problems in phase 1 are going to be different than your problems in phase 2.
Yeah.
Because now in phase 2, let's say you're having comments, you're having likes and all that stuff, and you're getting DMs, but then there might be another problem that arises. And that's why it's so important to hire somebody that's been through it so they can fast track you.
Yes.
And you don't have to learn, you don't have to take as much time, which I think is the most valuable asset besides your health.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's like a no-brainer.
And I think in stage 2, what's really cool about it is you start to see a little bit more freedom, and you start to see that the system is working for you. Because like what happens at stage 2, you might be starting to get more feedback, more testimonials. People are starting to maybe watch your videos, show up to your master classes. Like it's starting to feel like something's working here.
Yeah.
Like we're seeing how things are compounding, which is really special. So I think that's stage 2. So now how do you go then from stage 2, which is signs of life, to then stage 3, which feels like it's really compounding. Like you have a real community here. You have this community growth engine.
So stage 3 is like, people are probably DMing you more, right? They're getting more into like your DMs, and they're asking you questions that, they're seeing you as the authority, and they're pretty much like, asking for help in that way, right? They're asking questions. Maybe they're just like, hey, how you been? They're just staying up with you in the DMs, and if you don't post for that day, maybe they're worried, like what's going on? Like, I haven't seen your post. Is everything okay? And that's a real thing, I think, in phase 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think things like the things that were in phase 1 that came hard are now coming easy for sure in phase 3. And like I said, there's new challenges that arise, but things are easier, right? You're more known. Your posts that you make are seen more, so you're getting more likes, more comments, and I feel like in that sense it's getting easier.
Yeah.
And that nurturing that happens in a community, especially when it's free, it's so powerful, because when you think of the ascension from free to paid, all the conversations, all the DMs, all the check-ins you did, it's all definitely not for nothing.
It's compounding.
Even if it's all compounding. Yeah. And that person on the receiving end is probably, maybe they're having a tough day and they're just like, I just want to quit. I just want to be done with this. I just want to go back to a day job and just kind of forget it never happened, right? I see people log off of school, and you just see on their activity that they're just gone.
It's just all gray.
They haven't been active in 180 days, and you're just like, this guy's gone. And to me, I connect with a lot of those people on the onboarding call, so I do feel, I don't want to say I feel responsible, but I definitely feel some type of way, because they shared their ambitions, their dreams, their purpose with me. And I do get connected with that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think phase 3, from a systems perspective, is where you're in like this refinement phase. You've learned so much since stage 1, so you can go back and look at your process in your funnel and what you've learned, and now you're kind of not changing anything, but you're making upgrades based on all you've learned about your audience up to this point. So like that's what we've just gone through, is like really upgrading, and we're just refining these systems and processes, like what's working, what's not working. And this is where you start to see people like going through your system, and now they've been nurtured, like you were saying, for months, right, where they're getting these different touch points, and then at what point they're like, I just need help, I just need to hire, and you're clearly top of mind because they're already feeling supported by you.
Yeah.
So I feel like a community, I never saw it like this before, but it's like this nurture pot, this place that's different than social media because you can't control those algorithms. But when they're in your community, you do have control of that because you can do better classes, you can have better coaches, you can have better, you can just make upgrades in your community, and you're in control of whether or not people keep coming back. We're not relying on some stupid algorithm like Instagram's that's not going to show us to anybody next week.
Yeah, there's no, and that's the amazing thing about school. And after talking with Sam Ovens, that was like the one question I was dying to ask him was, like in my own community, am I allowed to do X, Y, and Z? And he's like, you can do whatever you want in your community as long as it's not illegal. And that's like, to me was like, oh, that's freedom of speech to me. I love that. And that gave me the green light to like, okay, yeah, I'm really going to go all in on this. And I share that with some of our clients too, because if you are on like a specific topic with, let's say, COVID, or a topic that's very sensitive on the online space, there's no AI that's going to like, like block your content. Your freedom of speech in your community is free. It's very free. And that to me is like, it's not talked about enough. So thank you, Sam, for creating the space.
So ultimately, how you could fix it if your community feels dead, like Steve, you hit this one, is being consistent.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I would bring in here is having really strong messaging. So what that means is, instead of trying to help everyone, which by the way, when you're doing that, you're ultimately helping no one, you have to be very specific who you help, how you help them, and provide your community as that next logical step to help them solve that problem. And if you can start doing that properly to the person that you ultimately want to serve, like that's where they're going to feel supported. So I think if your community feels like a ghost town, speak more directly to the one person you want to help. So like that's my main feedback. What else would you add to that?
Yeah. Okay. So like, say if our community just died and it was just like there was crickets, there's so many different tools that you can use to get your engagement up, yes, but also your community going again. And the DMs, like the DMs are a great place to just be like, hey, I just made this post on a poll. I'm curious, what do you think about this? I would love to know your input. And you generally do, right? You made this poll as an owner. You want to know, like, is this the route that we're going, or is this the route? And you generally care about their response.
Just please no automated spammy DMs.
Yeah, keep it organic and authentic. But yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing, is like reaching out in the DMs. I mean, if you have 20, 50 members, reach out to all 50 of those members. I don't think you have an unlimited amount of DMs you could send to in your own community, so send those DMs. And I would say, finding them on other socials. If they're linked on school, if their Instagram is linked on school, go ahead and follow them on Instagram and get engaged with their story on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Like, be community, be connected with those people, and just show them that you care. I think that's like the biggest thing, is like the automated stuff is great when it comes to like systems and being free in that way, but school is not that type of place. So like the automated post will never happen, in my eyes, unless Sam just sold the company and somebody else took over. But the automated DM is that's not authentic. That's something that's like scheduled, and you're like, you know what I mean? It's just not an authentic way. So with AI coming, and it's here, school is the place of authenticity, where Instagram and other social media platforms are a little less likely to, it's just not as authentic, right? Because you don't even know if you're the one, speaking or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I would say that's the biggest thing, is utilizing the DMs, getting engaged, finding your people. If it's not on school, finding them on Instagram or wherever they are, LinkedIn, whatever it is, and just engage, and just little touch points here and there go a long way.
Absolutely. Well, and I think back to what you were saying about automation, because I have a slightly different take on it. I think automation is great, like a funnel, like an auto DM that triggers a message, but don't allow that to do all the conversing. I think having a funnel, for example, where you send people from something like this is wonderful, because you don't have time to engage and initiate that all the time. But if you set the system up in the back end and then you allow that to start the conversation with someone, and then a human kicks in, like Steve, your auto DM that goes out on school is great because you don't have to think about manually DMing everybody who joins our community, because we have a lot, I think we're at like 20 people a day joining. You don't have to think to DM all 20 of those people. Yeah. So that auto DM triggers that conversation to be started, and then you step in and you take that. So I think the problem is people try to automate too much and it feels robotic and people know it's not legit, and so they feel ick. But I think there's a way to do it where it gives you back your time, but also opens up for having a really valuable conversation and a really great opportunity, because I can't think of how many people would have fallen through the cracks in our system had we not had levers we could pull like that at least start the interaction with us.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the automation and aspects are great.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think there's people that do too much of the automation. And I think people on the receiving end I can see that. Can feel that. Almost.
That's where you got to find that balance of like an auto DM could be great, and then a human needs to take over. A funnel is great, but then it needs to lead to a call with a human.
Yeah.
Right? Or if you enroll a client while you sleep, great. Get them on an onboarding call so that they're face to face with you as soon as possible. Like, there's ways to automate the process and then kick in with a human, and that's so important, especially if you're looking at a membership and like making it sticky. You've got to have that human interaction. Stephen, there's been countless times people have said, well, if it wasn't for my onboarding call with Steve, I would have left, because it would have just been like another community to me. But since they had that FaceTime with you, it made them vested in our community and being an active member and a part of it.
Totally. Yeah, I was going to say too, you have 100,000 members, 250, 1 million members. I still, I might not take as many calls as I do now, but I would still like to, be on the ground and see what these members are actually wanting, and still always take those calls. Maybe not as many, but I think it's important. There's people that just shut it off completely and they just, they're gone and they have everything automated and they're making tons of money. But at the end of the day, I think as an owner, it's still very important to stay connected with your members. And, you might not be as active as you once were, but at least you're still there and you're still showing up for them and you're hearing them out. I feel like that makes a great community owner.
Yeah. So then I really feel like once you hit phase 3, once you have leads coming in, that's when it's even more important to have the proper system set up. I mean, with our clients, typically what we do is set up the systems first if they don't have traffic, and then we focus on driving traffic to those systems. It's kind of like someone who might have 100,000 followers on Instagram or 100,000 YouTube subscribers, but they're not yet monetizing because they don't have that system in place. So I'm a firm believer in setting up the systems in the beginning. That way, the more traffic you drive to that system, it's just gonna work for you. So that's part of what we do with our clients, and that's a huge thing of what I feel like we've mastered and are continuing to learn and grow and master is the systems aspect.
Totally. And a lot of people are like, I need more quantity. But if you have 10 people, you should at least be closing, 30% of those people. So having 3 people is, don't look at like getting 100, 1,000 members. Just look at getting 10 members and closing 3 of those. I think that's what I always tell our team too, is like, you guys, we have enough traffic. Let's start, executing on the traffic.
Yeah.
I feel like it's not all about quantity.
Yeah, exactly. Quality over quantity. And as your community grows, there's obviously going to be people who are never going to buy from you. But some of them might be really engaged community members. Others, you're kind of like filtering them out. Think of like a net. We're waiting to catch the right fish through the system, right? And it's kind of like weeding out those who aren't a fit and magnetizing those who are to you. And so regardless, however much your community grows, the more you're going to start to attract the right people to you.
Yeah, and that's when your messaging is really clear.
Yeah. So if you want to get behind the scenes access to exactly how we've set up our back-end systems of our community, I have a full free course that you have access to. I'll put the link directly below this video. And then you'll be able to see exactly how we have built the engagement inside our community and actually be a part of it live, because we'd love to interact with you directly.
Yeah, we'd love to see you guys in there.
So I'll put a link below this video, and please join us inside of Magnetic Memberships. That'd be the best place for you to come and get support directly from us, because we love to get to know every single one of our members. So we'll see you inside.
I'll see you guys.